Today's review is for the pirate theme tactical strategy roguelite, Rogue Waters, a game that has some very interesting ideas for how it presents itself, but I'm afraid the booty here may be just a tad on the light side. Rogue Waters follows Cutter, now Captain Cutter, after his former captain betrays him and he jams a mysterious cursed object into his eye. He awakens 17 years later to a world change. Piracy now is focusing on this mysterious glass substance. Monsters roam the land and he is now an immortal pirate. And he decides to swear vengeance on his former captain, grow a undead crew of his own, and try to make sense of this topsy-turvy pirate world we now live in. This is a roguelite that kind of follows in a almost like grand campaign structure of, say, a Darkest Dungeon, and that kind of flow. Each run, you'll choose from one of 3 possible choices. 2 which will be kind of randomly chosen that have different rewards, and 1 story-themed one. Beat the story one, and you'll unlock kind of the next tier of the story, new elements are introduced, etc, etc. On the runs themselves, it features a mix of different kinds of turn-based strategy and roguelike design. The run itself is kind of organized in the ever-popular node-based system. You'll choose which ship you'll go after, and then you'll get into 2 different fights. The first fight is on your ship versus ship. Using your different cannons, your mission is to try and target and weaken the enemy ship any way you can in order to set yourself up for the next fight. So targeting the enemy's cannons prevents them from targeting your stuff. Targeting modules will confer different buffs, and the enemy can try to take out yours as well. This is incredibly important that I'll come back to in a few minutes. Or you can just shoot the dang people off the boat and make the turn-based combat a lot easier. It is entirely up to you based on which cannons you have equipped, as different cannons can only target specific parts of the enemy ship and have different costs/command points. When that is over, you'll get into the turn-based combat proper, where you'll be able to take Captain Cutter along with other crew members on board the enemy ship. The crew is separated into mates, which are kind of like your generic like red shirt pirates, and specialists, which are your unique classes. As an interesting touch, when the game generates a new character that you can buy in the tavern, each character is kind of randomly created out of 3 skill trees. The first is its own kind of chosen class tree, and then 2 random from a pool. So you can get characters that have very different passives and active abilities, and this kind of plays into giving yourself a little bit more replayability and making it easier to kind of build a very varied crew. Now, during the kind of crew-based combat, it's all about kind of moving characters in position. You can also knock enemies backwards into each other, into your characters, or into traps on the field. And the combat here is meant to be very fast. At the start, most characters will have maybe 3 to 4 points of health apiece, and your crew members are going to be kind of flimsy on that side as well. Where the challenge of the turn-based combat comes in is with what modules you leave on the enemy ship, and there are a very wide variety of them. You have modules that can raise attack but lower health, health regen, armor, give characters additional movement, have them have additional effects, repose, and so on. And your crew members can also gain these abilities based on what modules you equip. Now, for the classes themselves, they all kind of have different specialties, and the kind of strategy of Rogue Waters is you want to build your crew where they complement each other. So one of the character classes, you can push enemies into them, and they don't take any kind of push damage, and they counter. So you can combine this with kind of a bruiser, whose their whole specialty is grabbing and flinging enemies in different directions for hilarity along those lines. During a run, you'll be able to purchase additional modules and cannons using your kind of gold that you'll pick up. Now, win or lose a run, you'll then have to focus on Rogue Waters metagame. After a run is over, you'll gain glass and blueprints, which are your persistent currency. glass is used to buy new crew members, and it unlocks a few passive bonuses. But the blueprints are the moneymaker, or meta maker in this case, because this will allow you to unlock permanent bonuses, including starting with better quality modules and cannons, having more inventory space to store with more stuff, get more command points, and even make use of your sea monster backup crew, because at some point in the story you will get access to sea monsters that you can activate in combat to give yourself an even greater edge during the different events. The big thing when it comes to the meta is upgrading both the specialist and cutter, as they can be upgraded by leveling up. Your generic mates do not level up. This is a very big deal, as this will allow you to unlock new active abilities, enhance the ones that you have, or raise their stats. And you see, this kind of gets us to the issue that Rogue Waters has. This is a roguelite through and through, and while I do appreciate the faster paced turn-based combat, this game is painfully annoying when you first start playing. You simply do not have the means, the skills, or the command points to really make a stand. You see, because how everything works in this game, if you don't have enough command points, you can't use all your cannons effectively. If you can't do that, then you can't really weaken the enemy, and then the turn-based combat becomes far more frustrating. Without upgrading your specialist and cutter, there are certain fights or certain module combinations that you will lose. Like, there is nothing that you can do to avoid it. If you get, for instance, enemy has plus armor, plus health, and plus repose, you might as well give up if it's like your first or second run. Because if your characters are only doing 1 point of damage and armor blocks 1 point of damage, they are inherently invincible. And even if you knock enemies into each other for increased damage, well, guess what? They'll just recover that extra damage on their turn. And you have to, again, kind of struggle for your first, I would say, maybe 3 to 5 runs of this game before you start to kind of get ahead. The second you get your characters to do 2 points of damage, that is a huge deal. You can now wipe out most of the enemy's generic kind of troops in a single turn. You can also get additional abilities such as repose onto your characters, life regen on your modules. There's a lot of stuff in this game that I really like, but it is one of those games, because of the roguelike elements, that it's hard until it's not. The footage that you've been seeing over the course of this video has been maybe 5 to 6 runs in. I think I'm like 2 to 3 story maps along the way as well, and at this point things are going very, very well for me. Cutter can basically kill an enemy for free with his 2-shot pistol. He gets repose, which if I get a module that increases damage or gives him armor, just basically turns him into a counter-attack machine. I have another character who can perform damage down on each other, and it becomes very easy, and especially once you power up your monsters. So my Kraken just pimp smacks an entire line of enemies for like 5 points of damage, and can kill just about anything on the lower end. Now, that doesn't mean that the game just becomes a cakewalk. If you're playing those on the higher difficulties, it does throw more things at you, and the boss fight sections can become challenging. But this is nowhere near, I think, as like a downward spiral effect compared to some of the other roguelites that we've played. Get good enough modules, get good enough cannons to break the enemy's own buffs, and you can win fairly easily. And then when that happens, it just doesn't feel like there's anything else going forward at that point. Yes, as you beat the story maps, more enemy types are introduced, more classes and more combinations will start showing up, but once you have that routine in play, there's not much the game can throw at you at that point. Yes, give the enemy more armor, or let them start with more health. I'll just debuff them, fling them into another character for increased damage, or just shoot them with my gun, and it's all over. And the footage also is taken after the game got its first major kind of patch/update in November, and developers have been talking about supporting this game some more. I think there's a lot of potential here. Again, the snappier turn-based combat definitely works for me, and I really like how the game kind of rewards you for how you plan both the ship versus ship mode, and then how you're building your characters. But it can be a hard recommendation if you're expecting to jump into this game and then immediately start yo-hoing and pirating around. You have to kind of get your sea legs over the first few runs. To wrap things up for our review, Rogue Wars is a very fascinating game to take a look at. If you're someone who's tired of very slow pace, very kind of methodical turn-based strategy and looking for one that's far more snappier and quicker to play, I would definitely give this one a check. As I said, it can be a little bit rough for your first couple of runs, but if you can get past that, I think this is a very entertaining game, and it's one of those concepts that I really would like to see developed further, with like more content, a sequel, whatever, because there's definitely something here as kind of this mix between strategy and a roguelite. With that, this was played with a press key provided by a developer. Let me take a your game for a future stream and video. It does not have to involve roguelite, strategy, or pirating. Please reach out. Let me know what you think about this one down below, and I will see everyone in the next video. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.